Hello, my friends. It's your buddy Phil here, project management trainer and coach. Welcome to our episode for this week of PMP Reset. For those of you getting ready for the PMP exam, you've always got questions swirling around in your head. What am I going to face? What are the questions going to be like? What should I expect? Well, if there's one thing, I want you to know that the questions you're likely to get, they will not be questions that test you on ITTOs wrote. They're not questions that test you on formulas wrote. Now, even though in the past year, I might have heard the odd one or two students say, I got one question that asked me blatantly about ITTOs, like an output or tool and technique. But I want you to know that majority of your exam, in fact, I could say 99.9% of your exam is going to be focused around your ability to reason, to solve problems. So for our reset exam this week, I want you to focus on what your exam is likely to be made of. And it's thinking to solve problems. After all, what is an exam? It's a test on how well you can solve problems, depending on the problems that you're given. The problems you're going to be given on the PMP exam are going to be very situational. Okay? So don't let that catch you by surprise going in. Some people think the exam is going to ask them rote questions about inputs, tools, techniques, output, formulas. No. Not anymore. In the past, yes, but now, no. So if you are attending a course that is feeding you gallons and gallons of this ITTO stuff, you need to be very concerned. Because more than anything else, what we've heard from students who take the exam is that the exam has a very huge dose of the Agile Hybrid variety. Okay? So you got to be very good with Agile. You got to understand Agile speak. You got to understand the manifesto, the values, and the principles. So if I said to you, business people and developers must work together, you should be able to at least complete the sentence to some degree. Or if I said, working product is, I expect you to have some idea about it. Or if I say, individuals and interactions, I expect you to be able to respond accordingly. Now, when you understand what the manifesto means, you should then be able to apply it to answer questions. Your exam is going to test you on these big ticket items. People are key. What do we mean by that? People are the reason why you're working the project, so put them first. People are the humans working the project for other humans, so put them first as well. Also be aware of this concept of believing the best in people, trust, having trust in your team, understanding that you as a servant leader should act in your team's best interest. These are things you are going to be tested on, okay? What I would like us to do right now is go through my 36 mantras. I call them 36 mindset mantras for your exam. Going into the exam, being aware of these is only going to help you to a very high degree. So why don't we jump straight into those and let's begin to talk about the real mindset that you need for the exam. It's not about the ITTOs and all of that stuff is good, but when rubber meets road, it's going to test you on your principles at heart, okay? So these 36 mantras, I put them together to help students, to help people going into the exam to think properly. Okay, so first of all, you got to think people, like I said. Here are some of the terms that you might encounter. Team, customer, product owner, sponsor, stakeholders, program managers, portfolio managers, steering committees, functional head, subject matter experts. These are terminologies that you should be familiar with. So if I say functional head, you should know what that means. And you should be able to say, based on what I know about the world of Agile, these folks have boundaries about how they can interfere or come into the team or pull people off the team. In the world of Agile, it's very different. So you should know the place of functional managers. If you're dealing in a more hybrid or predictive arrangement, you should also know the boundaries. So just being very flexible and comfortable to talk about these is a sign of readiness. If I mention steering committee, or I say portfolio steering committee, and you really don't know what it's talking about, I would say go open up the ABCs in the 6th edition and read a little bit more to get this terminology down. Now, while you're not going to be tested rote on the terminology, it will be used to construct the questions. So here are my 12 for people, right? The people mindset mantra. It pretty much states, as a project manager, make your customer your primary focus. Make your customer success a primary goal. Work with the customer to move the project forward. If the customer wants a change, don't say, no, we can't make that change. That's never the best answer. Always consider what the customer wants. Be fair. Treat others the way you want to be treated, and be a good steward. This goes back to PMI's principles in the 7th edition, where the word stewardship is used. Understand what a steward does. You protect the resources entrusted to you. You treat it like a serious job, because you know that the stakeholders aren't there to protect what they have invested in themselves. Focus on team health, trust the team, be a servant leader. You should understand the tenets of servant leadership by Robert Greenleaf. And this is all about serving the team. Whatever you can do to serve the team, do it. Whatever you can do to shield the team from interruptions or from any kind of attack, verbal attack, do it. Believe the best in the team. Mentor and coach not only your team, but the entire organization as opportunities emerge. So the idea is, if you are a servant leader and you see an opportunity to coach someone who is not using the right terminology or who is probably a threat to the team, it's not an opportunity to look at the person as an enemy, but instead it's the opportunity to look at the person as someone who needs mentoring and coaching. Case in point, an organization that I was training and coaching. We had someone who had a poor idea of how the team should work. Pretty much wanted to kill the team with overtime. Well, we realized that that was an opportunity to coach that individual, you see. Not attack the individual, but coach the individual. Because such things are very dangerous to teams. Trying to make them work 80 hours a week and things like that. Not good. So mentor, coach, serve, and guide the team. Also people in the organization. Don't use coercion or punishment. That is typically not the best option on the exam. Be aware of integrity. Do not abuse your position or title. Be honest in all your dealings. When presenting information, presenting data, always present the full picture. Don't present half-truths. Be courageous to lead. That's one of the things you're going to be tested on. Are you able to make a decision and move forward as a project manager? Don't shake in your shoes. Decide this is what is going to be done and do it. Just go for it. So make tough decisions. The exam will test you on making tough decisions, where you are the project manager and it says, what should you do next? And there's no mother may I on the PMP exam, like where you're given the out of escalate to someone else. Don't do it. That's the worst thing you want to do. And lastly, we have agility. Be agile and adapt to be resilient. All right, so these are just a few of the ideas, and every week we'll top up and go for more. But when you take a look at this people thing, a lot of this people idea, this people mantra, what you find is it's based on just good humanistic principles. The golden rule is another one that you should always have in the back of your mind. Do unto others as you would like it to be done unto you. It's a simple rule, but it can really help you on the exam. Now, for those of you wondering, okay, Phil, what do I read to get good with the people piece of the exam? I'll show you here a few chapters that, if I were you, I'd read these. I'll try and understand these better. And we're talking about the PMBOK guide, the 6th edition. I would highly advise reading up the chapter where we have resource management. Resource management, chapter 9, is where you are going to get a lot of the substance to understand how resources are managed, how resources are controlled, to use the term for physical resources, in the world of predictive. Okay? In resource management, we plan resource management, right? Plan resource management. We estimate the resources we need. All right? We say estimate activity resources. Then we acquire resources. Then we develop the humans that we're working with. We call it develop team. So we develop our team. When we know who our team members are, we develop them, and not just once, but all throughout the project. And then we lead the team, although this process is called manage team, but it's really more giving the team feedback, leading them to excellence. And last but not least, I'm going to put this one in red, we have control resources. And this is where you are controlling physical resources, not humans, physical resources. Okay? So that's the first knowledge area that is very people-centered. Okay? The next knowledge area that is people-centered is stakeholder. Okay? Stakeholder management. You get the idea. Stakeholder, chapter 13. And in stakeholder management, we identify our stakeholders, and then we plan stakeholder engagement, and then we manage stakeholder engagement, and lastly, we monitor stakeholder engagement. That's what you do. As you study, I have to be honest, there's really no point obsessing over cramming stuff. You just need to understand it, because when the question hits you, it's going to be hitting you from an angle of situation, problem. What's the answer? Here's a situation. This is what the problem is. What's the answer likely to be? I want to show you a few examples of this concept of how questions on the exam could be. And this is from our Project Management Masterclass. In the Project Management Masterclass, we cover Agile, Hybrid, Predictive in a lot of detail. Go on down to projectmanagementmasterclass.com if you want to know more about this curriculum. But I want to share with you on day one, we begin dunking our students into this stuff because we believe that they should have some idea about how to answer questions right from day one. Okay, so let's go into a couple of questions about people. Here's one. Now, as you take a look at this question, there's no process. There's no tool, technique, no input, no output. It just reads, you're working on a project as a team facilitator. You have identified that there is conflict among 4 team members who have formed factions. What is the best course of action for this situation? So again, it's a thing of mindset. There's conflict. Is it good to just let conflict fester, to take over the entire team? You as a professional probably already know that's not good. So what are you going to do about it? On the exam, you're going to be given some things that are just flat out wrong. You're going to be given some things that sound, well, they're not bad. But when you really think hard, they may be bad. Let me give you an example. Right here, we have A, resolve the conflict issue for the team. Now that sounds positive, but it's wrong. You don't resolve conflict for parties. You let them do it themselves so it will be long lasting and so that they will get the best result. Now you could facilitate conflict resolution, but you're not expected to resolve the conflict for the team, right? Moreover, it says get management involvement. Two very bad things that you should not do. Look at B. Evaluate, recommend, and reconcile the appropriate resolution solution. So you're recommending, right? And then you're linking the problem to the resolution, whatever that may look like. That may not be a bad thing. Let's take a look at the other option. So you see on the exam, you use a lot of the process of elimination. You don't have ITTOs, you don't have formulas, you have a situation and you have a problem and you need to solve the problem. All right, C says avoid getting involved in the conflict. These matters are expected on teams. That is a defeatist mentality, and if the team is suffering as a result of that conflict, this approach is only going to cause more trouble. It's going to make it worse. You're burying your head in the sand. Not good. And D reads, find out which party is in the wrong. Now, you'll be amazed. In some cultures, this is what they do. The boss says that person's wrong and that person's right, and you're going to be fired. No, that's not how we roll on the PMP exam. So if you are in a culture where this kind of stuff is being done, you got to change your thinking, right, on the exam. So find out which party is in the wrong. Conflict is not about right or wrong. It's about resolution, right? And this says having separate discussions with the team. Having separate discussions is not in the spirit of transparency. One of the things we want to do is be transparent, see, on any team, be it Agile or whatever. So the answer to this, my friends, is B. For obvious reasons, just as I explained, everything else sounds a little bit good until you look at it with another pair of eyes and you discover, no, it's not. Here's another one. A new team member just joined the project with very little experience. However, she is very confident in herself and her abilities to learn. She's very eager to take on work. Which leadership approach should you use with her? Now, a question like this, you got to understand this is situational leadership. A situational leadership model by Hersey and Blanchard. This will help you solve such a problem. What you need to do is really think about the Hersey-Blanchard situational leadership model, and where you've got your supportive behaviors as a manager on the y-axis, and you've got your directive behaviors on the x-axis. And this person just joined but has a lot of confidence. So in that case, you don't have to be overtly supportive. You do need to be rather directive. So we have a matrix that's like this, okay? When your behaviors are very directive without support, they're here. When they're very directive with a lot of support, they're here. When they're very supportive without a lot of direction, they're here. And when there's a lot less support and a lot less direction because the people have got it, they know what to do, and they're confident, and they don't need the support that others do, you are in the delegate realm. So we have directive behavior, we have coaching behavior, we have supportive, or also known as participative, and we have delegating behavior down here, okay, or delegating leadership approach. So based on what we're reading here, it says, very little experience, but very confident in herself. She's going to be right here where I've marked the X. Directing. So that would be the answer. So for something like this, you do need to understand some of the models talked about in the PMBOK guide. And that is where it could be a little bit tricky, but there are not a whole lot of questions like this. Still in the people realm, here's another one. As a servant leader on an Agile project, so this, you need to be in the Agile mindset. One of your key responsibilities is to do what? Is it to remove impediments? Is it to delegate work? That is not what we do in the world of Agile. We use more of pull mechanisms, right? Planning out schedule and cost is not what the servant leader does on an Agile project. The team does more of that. They have more control over that. And the scope, the schedule, the cost, the quality, all that stuff, it's more of a team thing. Your job as a servant leader on an Agile project, one of your key responsibilities is the removal of impediments. See where I'm going with this? So going back to what we talked about, the idea is to be able to shift, right, between each one of these mantras. Is it customer focus? Is it team focus? Is it servant leader focus? Is it general leadership focused? And when we say general leadership or servant leadership, that's where we have things like managing conflict, shielding the team, protecting the team, doing the best for the team, and stuff like that. Okay? So, if you haven't already done this, I want to recommend that before you exam, you take a look at the PMP exam content outline. The PMP exam content outline is actually what your exam is based on, if you didn't already know. If you thought your exam was based on the PMBOK guide, think again, because it's based on this right here, which I'm showing you up on the screen, okay? In the PMP exam content outline, we have a very detailed breakdown of how your exam questions are likely to be formed from people, process, and business. We have for each area, this is people. We have tasks, specific tasks, and each task has enablers. If I were you, I would go through this and I would make sure that I'm comfortable with each one. If I were you, that's what I would do. I recommend that you go through it, make sure you are comfortable with each one of those tasks, right? Make sure that you understand what they're talking about. Make sure you as a project manager, you feel confident that you can actually do this or that you can solve problems with these enablers or tasks or topics, and just take down each one at a time before you exam. Don't go into your exam without going through this, okay? This is different from all the other stuff I've shown you today, but I know that it will help you. All right? For those of you who are still struggling and wondering, what am I going to do? This exam is eating me alive. I want you to know that we have all manner of vehicles to help you. Just go on down to the website. It's praiseon.com, or you can just go to projectmanagementdoctor.com. I'll lead you there, same thing. But when you get there, you can actually sign up for an on-demand course that has email mentoring, coaching, guidance, training via email. So if you're ever stuck, you can get a ready answer, someone to help you. For those of you who prefer live training, because you know the value of live training is someone's going through every step of the way with you. So the 35 hours of you watching video all alone and pulling your hair out, you don't have to go through that. You just jump on the wagon. We got a course right here. It's called the Project Management Masterclass. And right here, we actually have ongoing training right now, but every month we bring this training to you. We cover Agile topics first. We set a very firm base with Agile, go deep into the Agile, and we get you bulletproof to be able to face that. And then we go into other things within the 5 process groups, the knowledge areas, but our focus is more on Agile Hybrid mindset and the general tactics for you to be able to attack the exam, okay? If this sounds like something you want to do, just go on there, register for the next one, or get on the on-demand training, whatever suits you, okay? Thank you for joining me. If you got any questions, make sure you put them in the comments below. Thank you for joining me on PMP Reset. See you next week.